So let's talk about constitutional carry, or what we used to call the Vermont law. Some people think my job as a gun lobbyist is just wearing suits at the Capitol and shuffling paper. Well, not so much. Welcome to Dudley's Range Rogues, and today we're going to be talking about constitutional carry. But before we start, please subscribe, like, and share our videos. We need your help to grow this channel, and you've done a great job so far, so join right in. Well, here's a map of all the states who have a Vermont law or constitutional carry passed as of this recording. See, the state of Vermont has never had a prohibition for carrying concealed without a permit, and therefore anything that a government doesn't prohibit is legal. Now, I would make the case that some things they do prohibit are still legal and should be overturned. But if a government doesn't expressly prohibit it, it's legal. Thankfully, that's the case. Otherwise, the internet wouldn't exist. A great many of the other freedoms we enjoy wouldn't be legal. Maybe using a laser printer or publishing a blog or something like that. But what really is constitutional carry? It's the concept that if you can legally possess a firearm under state and federal law, you can carry it concealed or openly. It's a recognized right by the law. If you read the Second Amendment, if you think about natural rights, the means for self-defense largely is carrying a small arm on you. There are some of us who like to carry all kinds of guns on a daily basis, but most people just want to carry a handgun, and they mostly want to carry it concealed. Constitutional carry says you are not forced to have a permit to carry that on a daily basis. What we're really talking about is the right of citizens to carry without government permission or a government slip. Not really saying anything about the difference between concealed and open, because frankly, I don't think there is much. See, when we run these bills, we don't get rid of the permit system. People want to get a permit, that's okay. We just remove the requirement to get it. I mean, what if a citizen wants to go and travel around the country, and so they need reciprocity in other states, or they travel frequently, to one particular state, they need reciprocity. Understandable. But we don't think they should be required to do that in their own home state. We've often called it a couple of different things. We used to call it Vermont. When I first started lobbying guns, really in late 1993, the term was Vermont law. And at that time, almost everybody you talked to about the Vermont law would laugh at you and say, that'll never happen. Never happened in this state. It wasn't just Colorado, where I was cutting my teeth at the time as a gun lobbyist. It was virtually every state. In fact, I remember distinctly talking to a couple different NRA state liaisons. I know it's shocking that they would not be on the pro-gun side, but at that time they said it'll never happen again. It was a fluke because they didn't have the prohibition for carrying concealed in the state of Vermont, and therefore it'll never happen ever again. That'll be the only state, until it did. You see, a Democrat legislator in the state of Alaska in 2003 carried a bill and kind of made all the good old boys mad, including the Republicans, that this Dem legislator was showing them up. Therefore, Alaska passed the law, signed into law, and it became the real first state to pass a constitutional carry or Vermont law. Fast forward to 2010, when Arizona, long considered the most pro-gun state in the nation, I almost consider it that now, and it passed the bill in 2010, largely because Arizona Citizens Defense League, a local only group, pushed it. And, kudos to them. Now, you'll notice when I go through the history here, I'm going to try and give some credit to where credit's due. A lot of times it's the local group. Sometimes it's working in tandem with national groups. At this time, there was really no one helping anyone around the country on this issue. And then in 2011, NAGR was contacted by Anthony Bouchard from Wyoming. He moved there from California into Cheyenne area and realized, wow, I moved here for freedom, but the good old boy club really doesn't want freedom. And they don't even want to talk about the concept of constitutional carry. He contacted really the Colorado group, Rocky Mountain Gun Owners, who I was running, and NAGR, which was very small at the time, and asked us if we would help. And I showed him how to create a group, helped him file Wyoming Gun Owners. And Anthony's a pretty bullheaded guy. He's now a member of the state senate there. He actually pushed the bill through with our help. I was up there a lot. And so were a number of other staff members from NAGR, and Wyoming became the next constitutional carry state. We made some mistakes in that law, and they've since been corrected, but it was a pretty big leap forward. And we were fighting against the Republican establishment, against the NRA, against virtually all the, quotes, pro-gun people, all the people who had been sanctioned as the pro-gun leaders in the legislature, frankly, were gutless. They all had excuses for not doing it. And then they started listening to the state police. You'll hear that as a recurring theme. They started listening to police chiefs and even some of the sheriffs, which we fight to this day. Here's the picture of me with two of the sponsors and then some female legislator who just kind of threw her name in because she happened to vote for it. That was the signing day. And in fact, the governor signed a bill and said, now we'll finally stop the phones ringing in this building. We freaked out the state of Wyoming because we lit them on fire in many ways. I think that was the record number of constituent contacts for any piece of legislation in the history of Wyoming legislature. It's kind of cool. Now in 2015, two states passed it. One was Maine, and there was a state senator up there named Eric Brakey, who was a rock star, and he was kind of a libertarian-leaning Republican, and Eric just pushed it hard. Also passed it that year in Kansas, and again, this is where the NRA state affiliate started attacking us, saying it was terrible, and they basically fought against the bill and had all kinds of excuses for why we weren't helping the situation when all we were doing was putting pressure on people. Now we get into the year 2016 and the era of Brendan Boudreau. Brendan is NAGR's field director, and so his job is to be working with our staff all around the country, pushing a lot of issues, but especially constitutional carry. It's kind of a new era for constitutional carry, and certainly for our staff, because Brendan's been deeply involved since then. And he eats, sleeps, and breathes constitutional carry states. And so in 2016, that's when you saw a bunch of gains. First, West Virginia, which was an interesting slog, but remember, that's a state that used to be very, very blue and very controlled by the unions and has moved very dramatically to the right, and now is, even though it has a Dem majority in terms of population registration, they don't vote that way. That's one of the reasons you see U.S. Senator Joe Manchin walking the fence and trying to stay in the middle, because he's a Democrat who frankly votes right in the middle, because he knows where his constituency is. He knows they're moving to the right, and frankly, they vote like Republicans. Idaho passed it. We played a very small, if any, role in Idaho. I'll give credit to Greg Pruitt in Idaho. Worked very hard on that issue. Mississippi, that was an interesting one, because in Mississippi, the state legislature in Mississippi, we'd been fighting them for years, and finally they just caved. I mean, they pulled every trick in the book, including arresting our staffers. We had to rotate staffers out of the state because they were being threatened to be arrested by the state police for practicing First Amendment rights. And we passed it, and frankly, they were happy to be rid of us in many ways, but at some point, you just wear them down over and over and over again. And that was a good case. We were the only real group pushing there. And then Missouri, that was kind of a tag team coalition, a bunch of different groups pushing it. NAGR played some role there, certainly, in driving that, and that became law. That was a good year in 2016. In 2017, New Hampshire passed it, with J.R. Hull was one of the state reps there, pushed really hard, and certainly a lot of credit goes to him and the Wheelers and some great people up there. And then North Dakota passed it, and it kind of passed a weak law that we've had to go back and fix, but it's nominally considered a constitutional carry state. 2019 was a pretty good year. 2019 was the year that South Dakota passed it. Now, South Dakota was, I think, an 18-year slog for a family that lives up there, the Lautenschlagers. The dad and then the son pushed it, and the whole family pushed it, as well as South Dakota gun owners. In fact, Zach Lautenschlager at the time worked for NAGR, was the main driving force in South Dakota. And Oklahoma, we got to give credit there to Nathan Dahm. He's a current state senator. He's actually running for the U.S. Senate right now in a primary. And Nathan was the driving force in Oklahoma. Now, Kentucky was an interesting one. We'd been stymied in Kentucky for a number of years for making any headway. And then we finally had a meeting with Governor Matt Bevin, and Matt came out and said, "How can I help?" And we showed him what was happening, how the committee chairs were stopping it. The Good Old Boy Network was stopping it again, Republicans. And then we went to two people, members of Congress, Senator Rand Paul and Congresswoman Thomas Massie. And those two guys made phone calls, and they were texting, and they would call everybody they knew in the legislature and activists. And it was kind of a team effort with those two from Washington, D.C., and of course, being back home and putting pressure. And I remember, especially Thomas had called me a number of times on saying, "How can we do this? How can we do that?" He was friends with people nominally there, but he knew this was a big policy move. And there you'll see Governor Matt Bevin and a newly minted state rep, Savannah Maddox, who was a driving force there, passed it in Kentucky. That was a great one. So hats off to the team there. That was a great victory, and you'd think it'd be easy. A lot of times the places you'd think it'd be easy, they're not. 2020, Arkansas actually passed it. They had some code that was kind of ambiguous that might have allowed it, and I think people were really practicing it there, but it wasn't really law. Actually passing the bill in 2020 established it as a real constitutional carry state. I know that was a lot to digest. There's a lot of action on constitutional carry, and we haven't even gotten to the big year in 2021. So we're going to split that off to the next video. Thank you for watching.